everyone, it's Melanie of Art Studio 320. I'm very excited about this project. It is oak and it is one solid piece of furniture. It's not in terrible shape. There are some gouges and some marks on the top, and I think I want to do something a little bit more exciting. It's a pretty basic piece of furniture, but I think I'm going to add some legs and put some hardware on the drawers that looks a little bit more modern, and just have some fun with it. Stick around. I'm using a mixture of vinegar and water, 1-to-1 ratio. It's my favorite non-toxic cleaner. I'm using my brand new birthday present. It's a Ryobi orbital sander. I will say it's battery operated, so it's easier to work with, but it isn't quite as powerful as my Bosch, simply because it's battery operated. This was a tough piece to sand, not because I was using my Ryobi, because right now I was using my orbital sander, just because it's oak, and oak is tough to sand. I had some gaps in the backs of the fronts of the drawers. I'll explain that later. And I wanted to fill it with my plastic Wood X, which is my favorite wood filler. Today I am using Melange Perfect White. That's the name of the color. It's actually kind of a warm white, so it's a soft white. I guess that's a better way to describe it. And the top there, I have a little piece of oak around the edge that I want to keep oak, so I'm taping that off. A quick note about sanding wood filler. You kind of have to pay attention. Maybe start out by using just a handheld sponge sander, something like that, and then going to an orbital sander. Just get a feel for it so you're not sanding off too much. I want the fronts of my drawers to have white in the middle and oak around the trim, so that's why I'm taping it off there. This is where the dresser is at right now, and I'm just waiting for the paint to dry. So here's the thing about me. Sometimes I get in such a rush that I tend to paint a second coat before it's dry. It's easier if you wait for the paint to dry completely. When I say completely, I mean at least an hour, 45 minutes, something like that. It feels definitely dry. This is now a commission piece. Now, when I started this video, it was not a commission piece. It was just a piece that I would have sold on Marketplace or Etsy or whatever. Right after I posted a photo of the piece before I did anything, I got a text from one of my oldest and dearest friends that said, "Hey, what are your plans for that dresser?" She's expecting her first grandchild, and because she's one of my oldest and dearest, I'm very excited for her because she will be the first out of the 4 of us in my group of friends from high school. Yeah, we've been friends a really long time. She is the first to have a grandchild, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty exciting. So anyway, her daughter has a crib that is white with natural oak wood around the top and then the base of the crib. This dresser did not have legs, so I'm going to put some MCM kind of legs on it because she likes that style. It's very simple. I'm going to leave the corners natural oak. I'm going to paint the top because the top looks kind of funky, and she's using this as a changing table, so the legs I got high enough to make this countertop height, which is perfect for changing a baby. You don't want to be bending over and breaking your back. This is the way the drawers were. I had to take the whole front off in order to get the hardware off because it was all put together with the hardware. So when I took the hardware off, this came off, and lo and behold, the other side is flat, and that's what I wanted. So what I did is I filled in with wood filler, and I taped off the edges so the middle will be white and then the outside will be the natural oak color. You're probably wondering, Melanie, how do you get a natural oak color to look finished? You use a natural stain. I am a little concerned that it might be too dark, that it won't match the crib perfectly, but if that's the case, I'm going to try it first before I do it on everything. I've finally learned that. I may try an edge. I'll try and see what it looks like with just the natural stain. Or my other thought is just put polyurethane over it and be done with it. It won't change the color. It shouldn't change the color. It might darken it just a little. We'll have to see. So I'm going to paint the top, and it will be covered with probably a pillow or whatever. Not a pillow, a pad to change a baby. I painted the centers between the drawers because the outside edge of these fronts are going to be stained. So that will be stain up against the painted furniture, and then the corners will be stained. Oak is very difficult to sand. I have done a lot of sanding, a lot, and I feel like I got all of it. There's such a deep grain in oak, it's hard to get everything out. All right, that's all I have. Stick around. I thought I'd share this. It's always satisfying to pull the tape off and see how nice and clean those lines are. There were a couple holes on the top, gouges if you will, and I just filled them with wood filler, and it was perfectly fine, couldn't even tell. I'm showing this because surprisingly there were lots of little nooks and crannies on this that I needed to sand because I wanted this to be the natural part of the piece, and it was hard to get in there. So I'm using my Christmas present. My husband's great. It's an oscillating tool. I've been borrowing his, so I guess he got something out of it too. It's great because it has a lot of different attachments. I can cut things, I can sand things, and it's just a really versatile tool, and it's easy to handle. It's not too big, and it's battery operated. Another tool by Ryobi, or if you say Ryobi, either one is fine with me. I was going to leave this trim around the sides, just a natural wood, but there isn't a lot of white on this piece, and the crib is mostly white, so I wanted it to match, and I decided to just do the sides white. I added blocks to the bottom so that I could put these goofy legs on. Now these kinds of legs, they stick out to the sides. You may have seen them before, but they aren't easy to install if they weren't manufactured properly. I really should do a video just about that. There just isn't enough time to cover it in this video. Okay, brace yourself, it's gonna sound like a commercial. I don't always use a primer, but when I do, I use BIN or Bin by Zinsser. And the reason I'm using it here is there were a couple spots on the top I was afraid were going to bleed through. So if you're ever worried about bleed through, a primer is a good way to go. You don't always need primer, but in this case I did. It is the middle of my project, and I thought I would check in. I wanted to give you an update on what I discovered yesterday. The hardware that they have on here are their side glides, or there's a lot of different names, and these are some of the cheaper versions. They have little wheels that roll, but I will show you. Now you have to lift up to get it over that first little wheel, And then it should slide pretty nicely, but it's very loud. And then it gets here and you have to to get it to shut. This dresser is going into a baby's room. So I started to think, well, I wouldn't want that in my baby's room. This is too loud and you have to like slam it to get it in. And that's frustrating. It rubs over here and it's kind of a mess. So what I decided to do was I'm going to replace the side glides or the slides. There are lots of different kinds and they vary in price. Now, if I were to replace the sides with something that was a little bit higher end or at least better than what's on there, because these are like, I think they were maybe $7 a piece, and even that times 6, because you have to have one set on each side and there's 3 drawers, so I'd have to have 6. Even that is not that cheap. So, I mean, it's still fairly cheap compared to $100. I thought, well, what if I do a center mount and that way I only have to have 3? That's pretty good thinking. Now my thought is, okay, is this going to work? My first thought was, it's a long drawer, but I've done drawers like this and I've had the center mount. There's these little weird plasticky things. I don't know if you can see them. And they go into the wood. There's just a little bit of height there that the drawer will sit on to keep it from tipping. Does that make sense? So when you're putting it in, because it's a center mount, it's gonna seem like it's gonna teeter, but it won't because it has these little plastic mounts in the front. Crazy. So this is what the center mount looks like. It's a nice quiet glide, and I'm going to be mounting this on the bottom inside the drawer. So we're going to take this drawer out. This is going to sit way back in here, and you can't see that right now, but I will show that to you once I get started. And then I'm going to want to center that in between, right center, dead center. And then I'm going to mount this bottom piece to this, and then I'm going to have to add a piece of wood here because this sticks up. This piece right here sticks up, and there's a little ledge here. And I want this to be level. And it won't be level once I take this part out because this part goes underneath the drawer. Okay, does that make sense? I hope it does. I know. It's funny when I ask you as if I expect you to answer me. It's a habit. Okay, so that's what I am going to be experimenting with. I only have one because I want to make sure it works. And then if it works, I will go buy 2 more. The first thing I need to do is take all the hardware off that's here. There's one on either side, and then the hardware off of the drawers. And then I need to put a piece of wood in here to level that off. So I have to think about that. I primed the top with 2 coats, so I'm going to paint the top here, and then I can stain all of the parts that I'm going to leave natural wood. So the stain I'm going to be using is a natural stain. I had wondered if I should just put on a polyurethane over the wood, but the legs look like they've had a natural stain put on them because they're just slightly different color and they are oak. So I'm hoping that by putting a little bit of natural stain on here, it will even out with the legs. Of course, because it's an oil-based stain, I'm going to have to let that dry for a couple of days, just a couple, before I put the polyurethane on top. This is called Perfect White, and it is not an all-in-one. So I'm going to have to put a top coat over the whole thing. All right, stick around. I'm grateful that this hardware, the side slides, came out easily, because what's coming up, the center slides, is not so easy, and I will explain in a minute. I'm really liking this trim around the top. It, I think, will go with the crib quite nicely. I decided to go with the natural colored stain. So really what that means is it doesn't have a color, it's transparent, but it offers some protection. And then once that dries for a couple days, I will put a polyurethane over the top. This wood I found in the garage for the little places on each of the little shelves where the drawers go, and that's going to hold the hardware. Now here we go on the back. There's the block of wood that I stuck in there. I glued it down, and the reason I did that was because the back panel is too thin. There's no way I could screw hardware into it without the screws coming out the other side, and that would be really stupid. So I put the block of wood, and then thankfully the hardware, it slides back and forth, so you know, it's adjustable. So I stuck that in there, and I didn't screw it down real tight because I wanted to be able to adjust it, and that came in very handy because I had to adjust it a lot. When you buy the hardware, it comes together, and one part goes underneath the drawer and the other part goes inside where the drawer goes. If you want to know more about installing drawer slides, stay tuned for a new video coming soon. This happened when I put the hardware back in because all of the pressure was on the hardware to hold that piece to the rest of the drawer. I had to take the pressure off, so I added another piece of wood, cut it to size, glued it down, drilled the holes where the hardware goes, and then filled it up with wood filler again, sanded it down, painted it again. All is well. I wanted to add something a little special, so I found these very adorable stencils that they're just kind of like secret pictures like you see in the bottom of a dish when you're done with your oatmeal. Kind of, there's a hummingbird, and then there's a moon and a sun, and then there's a tree. And I just thought there was just something a little special to add to the sides. In a perfect world, installing hardware such as drawer slides would work perfectly. Unfortunately, these drawers were not perfect. They were not the same size, and they didn't go in the way they were supposed to. So we had to manipulate the hardware a lot in order to get it to work. I collaborated with Phil. We made it work, but that's a whole nother video. I added 2 coats of polyurethane extra flat to protect the whole piece. Well, friends, that's all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. You know, when I bring home a piece, I kind of have an idea of what I want to do. This became a commission piece, so it kind of changed up what I was going to create on this. And it turned out to be a way bigger challenge than I thought because I decided that it was important to switch out the slides that were on the drawers. And I still think it was the right decision. In fact, I think it even more now because I killed 2 birds with 1 stone. I learned how to install drawer slides with the help of my husband. He and I together, he had never done it before, so he and I kind of collaborated and figured out together how to make these slides work. I will have a video on just that particular thing as soon as I sort it all out in my head and put the video together. So wait for that. It will be coming not too far in the future. And the second thing is now I have drawers that are nice and quiet and perfect for a baby's room. Thanks for being here. See you next time.